Hello everybody, how are you doing? Okay, so I'm doing for you a video. It's a video about the Bible, but it's more about human emotions and how we function and whether or not we're functioning in in a kind way, in a loving way, in a righteous way, okay? So I'm reading to you about Absalom. I'm in 2 Samuel, anywhere from 2 Samuel 13 through 15, okay? So I don't know how much of this I'm going to talk out or how much I'm going to read out to you, okay? Okay, so there's an issue with one of David's sons, okay? One of King David's sons was in love with his brother's sister, which is something probably inappropriate, and so I don't know how much of that I'm going to talk about, okay? So there was an issue between himself and his brother's sister, okay? And so the reason why it was inappropriate was because instead of this young man, Amnon, instead of him approaching the sister in the right way, if he was allowed to approach her, he approached her in the wrong way, okay? And that's a story in and of itself, okay? So if you're looking for a wife and you're a man, a young man, and you're looking for a wife, you have to actually go about the right way instead of going about it the wrong way, because you can get yourself in trouble with the law and or with your iniquities that you are creating for yourself and or for your descendants, okay? So that's one issue. Now that young man's name was Amnon, okay? And so what happened was that there is the brother of Tamar, which is the sister that was wronged, okay? His name is Absalom. So Absalom and Amnon are brothers, but Tamar is Absalom's sister, okay? So Tamar and Amnon may not be related, okay? The whole point, though, was that if Amnon was interested in Tamar, he should have went about it in the right way, if he was even allowed to deal with her, okay? So now what's going on is that Absalom cares about his sister, and because he cares about his sister, he concocted a plan to deal with the brother that wronged his sister, okay? So this is kind of complicated, but I'm not going to talk about that issue specifically. That's a whole nother issue on another day that I will deal with. So now I'm dealing with Absalom and the character of Absalom, okay? So how does this story go? So there's a lot. When I read the Bible, I kind of see the Bible and I read it, and I don't really kind of just say, well, somebody did something wrong, so I'm not going to read it. I kind of read it to understand what happened and understand what to not repeat. So when we read the Bible, we use it not as a script to go copy people's wrongdoings. That's not the purpose of it. The purpose of it is for us to learn from other people's wrongs what to not do so we can stay out of trouble, okay? So here I'm reading about Absalom, okay? And I'm reading about how does he deal with this situation with his brother, okay? So maybe like his half-brother. Okay, so anyway, so I'm at 2 Samuel chapter 13, verse 23, okay? So I don't know how much of this I'm going to read, because in the Bible it says we shall not kill each other. So I'm going to just kind of tell you what is going on. So Absalom had a plan to deal with his half-brother, okay? And so, so basically he is, I'm just going to read. And it came to pass after 2 full years that Absalom had sheep shearers in Baal Hazor. So after 2 full years of Amnon wronging Tamar, okay? That's David's son and Absalom's sister, okay? So 2 years after that incident, so maybe people forgot about what happened. They weren't so touchy about the issue, they probably forgot. So anyway, Absalom had sheep shearers in Baal Hazor, which is near Ephraim. So Absalom invited all of the king's sons. Then Absalom came to the king and said, kindly note, your servant has sheep shearers. Please let the king and his servants go with your servant. But the king said to Absalom, no, my son, let us not all go now, lest we be a burden to you. Then he urged him, but he would not go, and he blessed him. Then Absalom said, if not, please let my brother Amnon go with us. And the king said to him, why should we go with you? But Absalom urged him. So he let Amnon and all the king's sons go with him. Now Absalom had commanded his servants, saying, watch now when Amnon's heart is merry with wine. And then I'm not going to tell you what happened, because this Absalom is a character, and we're kind of studying his character, okay? We're not studying his character because he's a World Peace Prize winner. We're studying his character because we're learning what not to do, because apparently this young man, he is kind of crafty, okay? So we're studying this guy to figure out how to not do the wrong thing, okay? So anyway, so Absalom's plan was to deal with the brother that wronged his sister, and so he's very tricky, okay? So we don't want to learn how to be tricky like this young man Absalom. We just want to know what to watch for in people around us so we don't fall for tricky behaviors, okay? So anyway, so what happens is that the king, okay, so basically Absalom just convinced the king to allow Amnon to go with him and his sheep shearers to go do some errand, okay? And so all the king's sons went with Absalom, okay, including Amnon. So basically, they dealt with Amnon. The servants of Absalom dealt with Amnon. So now to tell you what they did, okay? And then after they dealt with Amnon, they all fled, okay? Now, as they fled, okay, in verse 30 here of chapter 13 of 2 Samuel, it says, "And it came to pass, while they were on the way, that news came to David, saying, Absalom has dealt with all of the king's sons, and not one of them is left." But that was not true, okay? So it's like what came to pass was gossip got around back to the king that something happened to his children, his sons. So the king arose and tore his garments and lay on the ground, and all his servants stood by with their clothes torn. Then Jonadab, the son of Shemiah, David's brother, answered and said, "Let not my lord suppose that they have killed all the young men, the king's son, for only Amnon is dead. For by the command of Absalom, this thing has been determined from the day that he forced his sister Tamar." So guys, we don't repeat this type of stuff. We're learning from the errors of the ways of people of the past to not repeat this stuff, okay? So Absalom was crafty. It's kind of like you see somebody sin against somebody you love. What do you do about it? Do you take revenge on your own, or do you pray about it and leave it in the hands of the Creator? So Absalom didn't leave it in the hands of the Creator, nor did he bring it to his father, nor did he bring it to the justice system. He dealt with it on his own. But back in those days, maybe that was allowed, but this is kind of crafty, and maybe that's why it's written about in this book, okay? So now let me tell you what's going on. So let me see. Hold on one second. So anyway, so Absalom flees from the location because he was near to the king, King David, and so he dealt with the brother that wronged his sister, and then he fled. Okay, so he caused some drama, and then he fled. So he flees to Jeshurun. Okay, and so now let me see. I'm going to skip down a little bit here. So Absalom fled and went to Talmai, okay, the son of Amminahud. I'm sorry, guys, the words are kind of challenging. People's names that I don't know how to say. Ammihud, king of Jeshurun, okay? Okay, so, and David mourned for his son every day. So David had lost Amnon, and then Absalom fled. So two of his sons, so David was in mourning for those two, because one was gone and one was passed away. So King David, verse 39, King David longed to go to Absalom, for he had been comforted concerning Amnon. Okay, so maybe he learned the story of what happened between Amnon and Tamar, so he understood why his other son dealt with why one son dealt with the other son in the way that he dealt with him. Okay, so anyway, so in order for Absalom to return back, because Absalom has now fled and he has been gone for, was it 2 years? Let me see, hold on a second. Okay, so let me see, hold on. No, he was there for 3 years in Jeshurun, okay? So it's 2 years between the incident between Amnon and Tamar. And then there's an incident where Absalom deals with Amnon, okay? And then 3 years later, so this is over a 5-year period, okay? So now Absalom is trying to return back to Jerusalem, okay? So I don't know if it's Absalom trying to return back, but there's a man named Joab, the son of Zeruiah. Okay, he perceived that the king's, I'm at chapter 14, verse 1. So Joab, the son of Zeruiah, perceived that the king's heart was concerned about Absalom. And Joab sent to Tekoa and brought from there a wise woman and said to her, so now they are deceiving again. So they continuously deceive, which is not very good behavior, okay? So he asked her to please pretend to be a mourner. So I'm not going to tell you what's going on. But what happened is that when you get down a little bit further, Okay, so basically she gave a storyline to the king, and when he answered her a certain way, she answered him back. Now I'm all the way at verse 12. Then the woman said, so this is the woman from Tekoa. She said, please let your maidservant speak another word to my lord the king. And he said, say on. So she was trying to get his sincere devotion first before she tricked him into agreeing with her. And this is not good behavior. This is bad behavior. We're learning what not to do, okay? So she said, and the woman said, why then have you schemed such a thing against the people of Aravad? For the king speaks this thing as one who is guilty, in that the king does not bring his banished one home again. So she was acting like she was in mourning, okay? Because she's a widow, her husband was dead. I'm kind of a little bit going fast with this video. I would read it out to you, but okay. So she basically kind of tricked him into saying what she wanted him to say, which again is not good behavior, okay? So the point is that she basically allowed the king, or convinced the king to bring his banished son home again. She made him feel guilty, like he did something wrong. This sounds like bad behavior because I'm reading about Absalom and his character, and I'm kind of seeing some qualities in him I'm going to mention to you about in a couple minutes. But I don't like it when people trick one another, because there's a lot of trickery going on. When it comes to Absalom, there's a lot of trickery surrounding him. It seems like that's his nature. Now, when you go to chapter 14, verse 25 in 2 Samuel. Okay, now in all of Israel there was no one who was praised as much as Absalom for his good looks. For from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head, there was no blemish in him. Okay? Okay, so he also had a lot of hair, so he would cut his hair every year, and it would be like heavy hair. And so, basically, it's explained. So I started reading about this Absalom fellow, and it kind of struck me as I was reading about him, some characteristics of this young man that I'm not so sure I like, okay? Okay, so this is King David's son. So he's very handsome. So when I saw that it said, okay, he was very, very handsome, for some reason, forgive me, guys, I was like, I wonder how big is his ego. So forgive me, guys, for thinking that, okay? So, like, he's very, very handsome. And he's very tricky with, it's one, if you're handsome, that's wonderful. But if you have a good spirit with it, I'm sure you would attract a lovely spouse, okay? But if you're handsome and you use it to trick people, that's bad, okay? It's better to be beautiful and of good character than to be beautiful and to be deceptive, okay? So anyway, when we're in 2 Samuel 15, okay? So I'm just going to tell you the story. I may not read it all out to you because my video will cut off at a certain time. So anyway, so what's going on is that Absalom wanted to, there's a lot to this story. Absalom is a tricky character, and this might have to be a two-part video. But Absalom basically is trying to win the affection of the kingdom of Hebron. He's trying to take the kingdom from his father, but he's not doing it directly. So like I said, this Absalom, sometimes beauty without good character is kind of dangerous, okay? So King David, he has the support of Judah a lot of times. And that's great because King David was walking in the right way. He had a right heart toward Yahweh. But his son Absalom here, I don't like his character because he has beautiful looks, but the heart that's going with the beautiful looks, they don't match each other. And so that's kind of sad, okay? So anyway, what's going on is that Absalom tricked himself into the king's presence through deception. And then he tricked himself into, I guess, the court of the king so that he could gain the affection of the men of the kingdom. So it's actually an interesting storyline. I'm going to have to do a second part to this video. But basically what Absalom was trying to do was trying to win over the kingdom from his father. But the whole of his character is very sad. I'm so sad when I read this. So let me tell you from my notes what I am noting here. Okay? I kind of basically told you the things that I saw here. It's just that I'm very, very sad what I'm reading here, because you would think that a righteous king, now I know King David was not perfect in all of his ways. He had an issue with Uriah's wife. I understand that he was not a perfect man, but sometimes the iniquities of the parents fall on the children for different ways. Now it's not the same way that his son behaved toward women. At least we don't have a record of that. But it's kind of like, I'm very sad, because I would hope King David was praying over his family on a day-to-day basis to keep them in line, to make sure they were doing the right thing. But there were obviously issues in the house because King David was a busy man. Okay, so I might have to do a part 2 on this about Absalom's character, because I haven't been able to finish everything I needed to say about his character. So this may be part 1 about beauty without character. Okay, thank you guys for listening to my video. I'm sorry I had to rush on this video. I greatly apologize. Thank you for listening. Okay, bye.